Someone found half a finger in my family's bun shop. The diners in the store were in chaos. The police quickly arrived and cordoned off the scene. They found half a thigh meat that had not been chopped yet on my mother's chopping board. The meat is fresh. You can check it at will. I never use overnight meat or machine mincing. It's not springy and chewy. When the police fished out a row of skeletons with skin and meat from the black and fragrant brine pot, she was not afraid at all. Instead, she slowly and gently revealed the secret recipe that had never been passed on to others. Look, the meat still needs to be braised to be fragrant, and it will be juicy when you take a bite. My marinade ingredients. The police couldn't stand it and interrupted her harshly. Zhou Ruyun, tell me, why did you kill people? Where's your daughter, Goulet? She hasn't been to school for more than 10 days. She is about to take the college entrance examination. What did you do to her? College entrance examination? It's useless for girls to study. My mother laughed contemptuously. She doesn't need these anymore. A helpless feeling of suffocation filled my heart. My mother always looked down on me because of my gender. My efforts have never been recognized by her. Strange, people are dead, why am I still so painful? When the police were confused and followed my mother's gaze to open the refrigerator, everyone instantly covered their noses and showed extremely terrified expressions. Because I was hidden in the refrigerator. Torn into pieces, I was killed on the way home. The gangsters covered my mouth and nose with a handkerchief soaked in sleeping pills and dragged me into an abandoned factory. The huge pain woke me up quickly. My screams and struggles were met with even crazier insults from the men. After I lost consciousness, they continued to vent their anger on me tirelessly. After a while, someone suddenly gasped, "Brother, this girl seems to be dead." No way, so weak? You must be pretending. Wasn't she screaming just now? After checking her breath, it was really dead. Others also began to panic. Brother, we charge money for services, but we don't guarantee killing. The brothers have just been released, so they can't go back to prison. The leading strong man pulled my neck hard and slapped me repeatedly. With too much force, my neck snapped and tilted to one side. It was completely broken. My soul trembled and shrank into a ball. I was even glad that I was dead, otherwise I would have suffered so much. The man pulled up his pants unhappily, and after smoking a whole cigarette, he said, "Forget it, it's okay if she dies. If she dies, then the price we ask for will be different. Anyway, the guy surnamed Gu has a rich family." When I drifted back to the bun shop in a daze, my mother was playing mahjong with a neighbor. "Sister Zhou, your daughter Lei has good grades. She must be able to go to a university in Beijing, right?" My mother sneered contemptuously, "Am I that stupid? Can she come back after going out of town? I have raised her for so many years, how can I let her run away?" "You can't say that. Your daughter has good grades and has a better future if she goes out." "That's shit. She will still be a clerk for a few thousand yuan in the future." My mother's tone became colder and colder. "Girls are just bookworms. If my son is still here, he will definitely be hundreds or thousands of times better than her." Yes, my mother was pregnant with a boy. When she was 5 months pregnant, I caught a cold and got pneumonia, and the child was not saved. As it happened, my father's mistress gave birth to a boy. After the divorce, my mother hated me. "If it weren't for you, this family wouldn't have broken up. Tell me, do you want to get sick, because you don't want a younger brother?" It was late at night, and she was cursing while cleaning up the card game. "The evening self-study is over, where did you go?" She didn't know that her daughter's body was being dismembered. I watched her impatiently start to call me, once, twice, countless times, and the phone was, "Sorry, the user you dialed is temporarily unanswered, please call again later." She began to walk back and forth in the house angrily, constantly calling my class teacher and classmates. "If this stinky girl dares to go out and mess around, I will break her dog legs." My mother confessed to the murder. As for how many? I can't remember, you can check it yourself. Isn't there a DNA test? Yes, but the pot of brine alone is enough to make the forensic doctor bald. In that pot of aged brine, countless condiments were deposited, including star anise, tangerine peel, rock sugar, fennel, cardamom. Even the seasoned meat was divided into lean meat and tenderloin. I watched my mother's hands being handcuffed. When she was taken to the police car, a charming woman rushed out. She punched and kicked my mother, and said heartbreakingly, "Where is my son, Zhou Ruyun? Give my son back to me. This is my father's second wife, Jiang Shuangshuang." People were talking. I heard that her ex-husband's son has been missing for a few days. Could it be that she did it? This woman is so vicious. No wonder her husband dumped her. "Zhou Ruyun, if you dare to touch my son, I will never let you go." My father was so anxious that he went crazy. My mother smiled with a bruised face. "Look, you have come to this day." After I disappeared, my mother had to call my father and begged him to find someone. She said, "Your daughter, you don't know where you are? Don't bother me." Facing the two anxious people, my mother blinked. "Where is Gu Zhen? I really don't know, I sell so many cages a day." My mother's business is good, and diners come in an endless stream every day. The small store is always full inside and outside. She raised her lips slightly. "If you want to ask, you should ask the diners here." Suddenly, the whole place was silent. Even the police who pulled the woman forgot to move. Jiang Shuangshuang and my father lost color on their faces and sat helplessly on the ground. I really liked to see them collapse. Aunt Jiang begged my mother like a dog. I remember that when I begged her not to break up my family, the woman kicked me over. "Stupid, get out with your mother." Jiang Shuangshuang was my mother's best friend. This is a cliché story. My mother spent her youth accompanying my father to start from scratch. After she became rich, she was betrayed by them. She stubbornly believed that Jiang Shuangshuang was able to get to the top because she had a son. So she blamed my divorce on me. I don't know how my mother finally found the warehouse. After seeing my remains, she froze there. Everything stopped, from breathing, expression, to heartbeat. She picked up my scattered body, and after an unknown amount of time, she gently closed my eyes. From beginning to end, her face was empty, no sadness could be seen, not even sobbing. I laughed at myself. This was not the case every time my mother mentioned her son. Perhaps, without the burden, her future would be easier, she could form a new family, and have the children she loved again. It would definitely be very easy, right? My mother did not call the police, but took my body back to the shop and wrapped it very carefully. After dawn, she called the head teacher to ask for leave. "My daughter Lei is sick, ask for a few days off for her." "Yes, it will definitely not affect her studies." It was not me who was sick, it was my mother. She prepared breakfast and lunch as usual and knocked on the door loudly. "Why, head, the food is in the refrigerator, remember to heat it up before eating." "Mom went out to do something, the money is on the table, you have to eat more when you are sick, you are as thin as a bamboo pole." She was out for 6 days, and on the night of my 7th day, she was in front of my spirit tablet. My mother sacrificed her life as a gangster to commemorate me. Before my mother took action, she bought a second-hand delivery uniform. She had run the shop for so many years, and she knew a lot of people from all walks of life. She quickly got the information of the gangsters from the local bosses. She rode a small electric bike around the community. Years of hard work made her back a little hunched, and this image would not attract attention. My mother successfully locked the address and knocked on the door with the takeaway. The door opened, and the yellow-haired gangster took it vigilantly. "What are you looking at? Why don't you leave?" My heart skipped a beat. It was this man who attacked me from the bushes. My mother looked at the fierce-looking yellow-haired man with a violent aura and a fierce face, and smiled humbly. "Young man, if it's convenient, can you give me a 5-star review? Get out, if you don't get out, I'll beat you up." The door closed, and my mother's expression changed instantly. The cowardly smile was replaced by cold hatred. She didn't go downstairs, but waited in a corner of the rooftop, waiting until the evening. When she pried the door open and went in, Huang Mao was already foaming at the mouth and fainted on the ground. Yes, there was a lot of drugs in the lunchbox. I didn't dare to breathe the whole time, watching my mother drag Huang Mao into the wheel box that had been prepared long ago. There was a surveillance camera at the exit on the first floor. My mother took out the prepared steel wire, calmly hooked out the camera and pulled it hard. After turning the direction, she lowered her helmet and disappeared into the night. Huang Mao was awakened by the pain. He was horrified to find that his whole body was tied up. No matter how hard he struggled, he could only make a whimpering sound. My mother ignored her and sharpened the boning knife by herself. "It's you who bullied my daughter." Huang Mao begged for mercy with a crying voice, completely different from his arrogant appearance just now. He said it was none of his business, I was just an assistant. Someone paid us to go. The girl's innocence is the most important. My mother's face was full of wrinkles, and a pair of numb eyes were deeply embedded. You bullied Lei Xiu. How can she start a family and live a life in the future? She picked up the boning knife and compared it with Huang Mao's body, and finally found the best place to start. My grandfather was a butcher. My mother learned from him and had superb hand gestures. As she told the police, she never used a meat grinder. She liked to chop by hand. Then, I saw her raise the knife high and chop it down brazenly. Huang Mao fainted immediately, blood was flowing, and the kitchen was filled with a strong smell of blood. My mother splashed ice water on him to wake him up. After drying her hands, she took out a storage folder. I got closer and found that it contained the awards I had won since I was a child. When I was a kid, I happily went home with my certificate, but my mother would only scold me harshly. It's just a small competition in school, what's there to be proud of? Don't be proud, just because you are good at memorizing now doesn't mean you can go to high school. Boys will easily surpass you after they grow up. I have always wanted to get my mother's approval, even though it is difficult, but I thought that as long as I work hard, I can do it one day. My mother's trembling fingers touched my name on the certificate. My daughter has been a little model since kindergarten, a class leader, and has been a 3 good student every year. It turns out that my mother remembers my honors. She said softly, Lei is helpful and has good grades. Teachers and classmates like her. Others say they envy me, and I also feel lucky. I often think that I must have done good deeds in my previous life. This girl doesn't look like me, she is delicate and beautiful, and her personality is not as frivolous as her father. Our bad bamboo has produced good bamboo shoots. My mother suddenly pinched the gangster's neck, her eyes red. Why, you must be so cruel to her, she has no grudge against you, why? Mom, don't kill people. I tried to stop her, but there was no way, the ethereal soul could only pass through her body again and again. Mom used the rope to wrap around Huang Mao's neck and began to tighten. Huang Mao's face turned purple, his eyeballs bulged, and his tongue turned purple. Auntie, I was wrong, give me a chance to change. My mother is still waiting for me in my hometown, she is sick. I just want to make some money to treat her illness. You have a mother too? The rope loosened for a moment. Huang Mao thought that begging for mercy would be a good idea, so he became more and more pitiful and emotional, crying and playing the victim. I have it, my mother is about the same age as you, please forgive me, give me a chance. A chance? Have you given my daughter and Lei a chance? My mother's ferocious face showed a strange smile, and she said very kindly, that's great, your mother will soon be like me. It will be just as painful. The splashing blood sprayed on my photo. In the photo, I rolled up my sleeves and kneaded the dough seriously, with flour on my nose, which was indescribably funny. My mother was thrifty and didn't want to buy a good mobile phone, so even the secretly taken photos were blurry. She carefully wiped off the blood on my face, along with her tears. Then she cleaned up the scene, and started the morning market by making dough and chopping meat as if nothing had happened. During this time, the real estate agent came over. Sister Zhou, you asked me to help you find a stall in Beijing before, and now it's working. It turned out that my mother was planning to sell the old store and go to Beijing with me. Last time you said whether Lei wanted to apply to Beihang University or Beijing Foreign Studies University. I asked my colleague and here is the information, but the rent deposit is high. Sister Zhou, are you really going? How can I not go? My mother kneaded the dough expressionlessly and wrapped the stuffing neatly. She is a little girl, she is unfamiliar with the place, and she can't do without someone watching her. Alas, your daughter has grown up, you should enjoy a peaceful life. I can't enjoy it. What if I want to buy a house in Beijing in the future? It's not a big deal to be idle. I have to have a down payment, otherwise I will be looked down upon when I date someone, like I did when I was a kid. While I can still work, I'll save as much as I can. That's right, with your unique skills, Sister Zhou, you will be popular wherever you go. It turned out that when my mother said, "How can I let her run away?" she meant that she wanted to follow me. She was vulgar and paranoid, not well educated, and grew up in the market. She didn't know what it meant to say bad words, to hurt others. She thought that the more money in her bank book, the more love she would have. My nose was sour, and I leaned my head on my mother's shoulder. When we were alive, we had never been so close, and we were even more ashamed to say love, but now everything was too late. But just this leaning, my whole soul seemed to be frozen. In order to save money and time, my family rented a store on the second floor. At this moment, the wardrobe behind my mother quietly opened a gap from the inside. There was a man hiding inside. My mind was blank, and all the horrible memories before death came like a tide. This man was the man who broke my neck. The man, Shokuin, is a well-known gangster. He has a background in the underworld, has killed people, acts fiercely, and is a desperate man who is not afraid of anything. The man's eyes were like the tongue of a poisonous snake, locked on my mother. Looking at the sharp blade in his hand, I was anxious. "Mom, run, hurry up." In the dim light, my mother dragged on the ground without noticing. When she approached the closet, Shokuin rushed out with a knife. My mother staggered back and tried to close the bedroom door with her hands and feet, but Shokuin would not give her such a chance. Just when she closed it halfway, his strong body suddenly hit her. My mother was not as strong as him, and the door was knocked back. She fell back heavily, and Shokuin pressed her down, with the blade against her neck. "I knew it was you who was making trouble. Tell me. Where is my brother? If you don't tell me, I will kill you." His men disappeared one after another, and he couldn't sit still. But he didn't believe that an old lady selling buns had any ability, let alone that my mother could kill people. He was a beast, and he didn't understand the determination of being a parent. My mother's eyes were inch by inch, as if she wanted to cut the other person open. Huang Mao said, "It was you. They were the helpers you found." Yes. Shokuin recalled proudly, and laughed with endless aftertaste. "I am still your daughter's first man, oh, and the last one." My mother was shaking all over, and I rarely saw her so helpless. From childhood to adulthood, no matter what bad things she encountered, she rushed like a lioness. But Shokuin was still happy to humiliate her. "She is so tender, the girl's skin is white and smooth, but she is not playable, but several brothers can't stand it. She will call her mother when she is in pain." "You say, should I call you mother-in-law?" Ha 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 ha. When he laughed excitedly, Shokuin suddenly found that his voice was hoarse. But this was just the beginning. In an instant, Shokuin's body convulsed violently, and he collapsed like a madman. He was horrified, and blood flowed from his eyes, nose, and even ears. Only then did I notice that my mother was holding a half-filled syringe in her hand. It was highly toxic, cyanide. My mother knew that Shokuin would come for revenge. She knew that there was a gap in strength, so she installed surveillance inside and outside the shop and prepared enough medicine in advance. Shokuin was not fat, but he was tall and had tendons all over his body. My mother took a lot of effort to drag him to the kitchen on the first floor. She skillfully cut the artery with a knife, and as soon as she pulled it out, blood suddenly gushed out. Shokuin's body convulsed violently, and with each twitch, the blood spurted higher. In just 1 minute, he fell backward with his limbs spread out and died. The first yellow-haired man once said, "It was Master Guzhen who found me and said he wanted to teach a woman a lesson." They also filmed a video and said that they would make the woman lose face for the rest of her life. The evidence is in our boss's phone. Guzhen, my half-brother. Growing up in love and money, my beloved brother. My mother found a video in Shokuin's phone. My soul became very cold at this moment. I begged my mother to stop watching it. Don't open it, don't click it. My mother's chest rose and fell in pain, but she still chose to click the play button. The unbearable scene was enough to destroy any mother. Guzhen held up the camera and laughed at my face, not letting go of all my despair. Goulet, weren't you very proud in school? Keep being proud? Pain came from all directions. I felt blood gushing out from all parts of my body. The blood choked into my throat and I couldn't even scream. But until death, my eyes were full of stubbornness. I refused to bow to these unreasonable malice. I have never done anything bad in my life, and I have never hurt anyone. Why do you treat me like this? Guzhen stepped on my face with his foot. He said that he hated my eyes the most since he was a child, because there was ambition in them. Do you think that you can rely on your grades to show your presence in front of my father just because you study well? Then I will see. No matter how good your studies are, you can only be a prostitute in the future. If it weren't for you, my mother would force me to take extra classes. I am so annoyed. In the future, the family property and the house will be mine. Don't think that you can get anything if you can get 100 points. In fact, my father doesn't care about me at all. He just likes to use my grades to spur his son. They don't understand that grades are the only means I can use to fight against the world and the weapon that can make my mother feel ashamed. I have no choice. I must work hard, must be excellent, and must be the first. In order to suppress my only pride, Guzhen has made trouble for me in school. He formed gangs and excluded me, locked me in the men's toilet, splashed dirty water, and tore my clothes. Even someone slandered me for theft and photoshopped my face onto the face of a pornographic girlfriend. Afterwards, I couldn't stand it anymore and reported it to the head teacher. The innocent are innocent. If you haven't done it, why are you afraid of what others say about you? Besides, Guzhen doesn't bully others, why only bully you? The teacher skillfully took sides. You are Guzhen's sister after all. What can't be solved privately, you have to bring it to the teacher. Goulet, are you a little selfish? My dad has been doing a big business in recent years, and he has a lot of money to take care of everything. The teacher's protection made Guzhen more and more aggressive. The excitement soon passed, and finally Guzhen got tired of filming, and his family urged him to go back for supper, so he threw the camera back to show Kuan. Keep working hard, I'll beat you for the balance later. Seeing this, my mother finally couldn't stand it anymore and knelt on the ground. The string that had been stretching her broke, and she held silently, wailing like a beast. She began to slap herself frantically. It was not until her fingers were covered in blood that she seemed to wake up from a nightmare. Guzhen. Now it's your turn. The above is all about my crimes. My mother confessed in the police station without any need for torture. She eagerly shared the joy of killing her enemy with everyone in detail. The bun shop murder case set off a storm on the internet, and public opinion fermented quickly. The public was excited and demanded justice for the poor mother and daughter. In just a few days, my father's business went bankrupt and even his villa was smashed. What an excellent girl, she was in the top 50 in the province in the mock exam. What a pity. Her father is the boss of the Deshang Catering Group, a major taxpayer in the district. He has ignored his ex-wife's family for many years. He thinks his son is a treasure and his daughter is a weed. It's amazing to do this. The hatred of the younger generation must be influenced by the adults. It can be seen what the second married wife's attitude towards the ex-wife's family is. My mother never told where Guzhen was. What was chopped on the chopping board was not human meat, but mutton. Didn't they say that the murder was committed in the kitchen? But we couldn't find any trace of blood. It stands to reason that with this amount of bleeding, there couldn't be no residue. Some police officers also speculated, could it be that all this was her imagination? She fantasized about revenge for her daughter, but those thugs did disappear. The only thing that hasn't been determined yet is the pot of brine residue. 3 more days? My father was so anxious to see his son that he couldn't wait any longer. He slammed the table and roared, "Then you interrogate her, catch her, and torture her. Give her truth serum, my son can't wait that long. We are investigating the case, we don't need you to teach us. The police laughed angrily, and frowned. Gu Desheng, you said your son has been missing for 3 days? I saw a flash of evasion in my father's eyes. Yes, yes. You are lying. The last place where Gu Zhen's signal disappeared was the holiday home. That is your property. On the night of the murder of your daughter Gu Lei, at 2:30 in the middle of the night, your driver sent him there. We have controlled the driver now. You knew that your daughter was dead that night. As a father, your daughter was murdered, but you didn't call the police, but chose to conceal it. You are not worthy of being a parent at all. Gu Desheng, you are also suspected of harboring and sheltering a suspect. Wait for the lawsuit. When my mother left the interrogation room, Jiang Shuangshuang pushed her hard. My mother staggered after being pushed, and she numbly glanced at the crazy woman. Zhou Ruyun, your daughter deserves to die. Why are you pretending to be a saint now? Do you love Gu Lei very much? Don't think I don't know. You usually yell at her and never say a good word to her. Now you pretend to be a good mother. She was bullied at school, how could you, as a mother, not know? This matter is not my mother's fault. It was the class teacher who complained first and talked to my mother, Gu Lei's mother. Your daughter is in a bad mood and may be in love early. Parents should pay attention to this. My mother was trembling with fear, taking the teacher's words as an imperial decree, and believing everything she said. Many girls of this age are in love, pregnant, etc. Of course, I'm not saying that Gu Lei will be like this, but it's always right to be careful. My mother believed it. She secretly watched me send messages to male classmates, and based on a cute emoticon package, she concluded that we were in love early. This kind of emoticon is popular now. It doesn't mean anything, he just thanks me for the information. No matter how I explained, my mother just refused to believe me and confiscated my phone. You are about to take the college entrance examination, and you still have the mind to talk about love? My mother poked my head with regret. You are different from Gu Zhen. No one supports you, your mother has nothing to do to give you a good future, you have to rely on yourself for everything. That night, I found someone following me, and wanted to use my phone to call the police and contact my mother. But when I touched it, my heart sank, and my phone was not with me at all. I don't believe my daughter, I believe outsiders. I am guilty, you are right, I am also a murderer. Let me tell you a secret. Jiang Shuangshuang's face was completely distorted. You had a miscarriage that year, it was old Gu, he wanted to divorce you too much, even if he didn't want this son, so he secretly replaced the pregnancy-preserving medicine for you. Your son will be miscarried, it has nothing to do with your daughter, but, you have wrongly blamed her for so many years, do you regret it? Faced with Jiang Shuangshuang's insults, my mother did not deny it, and a layer of turbid tears appeared in her old eyes. Don't worry, we will accept the punishment as well. At this time, the police came over and said something. Jiang Shuangshuang's face suddenly changed, because the test results came out the finger in the bun. It was Gu Zhen's. Jiang Shuangshuang knelt in front of my mother, saying good things and crying. My dad also came out, and he tried to appeal to my feelings. Ruyun, I know you and your daughter have suffered so much over the years. I am also very sad about Leilei's accident, but it was an accident. You can't blame Xiaozhen for everything. He is still young. It's better to be younger, so he can stay in jail longer. My dad was handsome when he was young, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, otherwise he couldn't coax my mom to be so devoted to him. A ray of light flashed across my mom's distracted eyes. Gu Desheng, do you want to know where Gu Zhen is? Sure, let's play a game. She asked for her phone and opened a monitoring software. Everyone was shocked to find that an iron cage appeared in the monitoring, and the naked Gu Zhen was trapped in the narrow cage. The iron cage seemed to be stuck in the sewer, with no light around and sewage constantly pouring in. Gu Zhen was covered in wounds and was extremely weak after not eating for a long time. Jiang Shuangshuang was so distressed when she saw this scene that she almost fainted. Gu Zhen grew up in luxury and laughed at me for being a rat in the vegetable market. Now, his feces and urine were all over him, and it was extremely smelly. Guzhen's shoulders shook and he sobbed helplessly, Mom, where are you? Come and save me. Zhou Ruyun, what do you want? My father could no longer control his anger. Gulay is dead, what do you want? I know that you have a private account in Hong Kong. You are worried about Jiang Shuangshuang, so you have been falsifying accounts to move profits that are not needed for business operations. My mother smiled mockingly. Now, transfer all this money to my designated account and donate it to charity. All. My dad was furious, his face flushed. Zhou Ruyun, you're still thinking about money. Oh, I understand, you're using Lei Lei's death to blackmail me, right? Yes, you're resentful of me for kicking you out of the house. Back then, it was you who was willing to give up your property in exchange for Gulay's custody. You were willing. Yes, I was willing. My mom smiled. Now, it's your turn. Gu Deshang, since you love your son so much, then use all your property to exchange for your son. My dad refused, which was expected. Jiang Shuangshuang begged him to agree quickly, seeing that the water was getting higher and higher, and Guzhen's wound was crawling with termites. If he was not treated, there would be a risk of infection. Without food, he could not survive by drinking sewage. Old Gu, we can still earn more money, but we only have one son. My father was not deceived, he insisted on his principles righteously. Zhou Ruyun is just cheating us, even if we give her, it will be in vain. I am not reluctant to give up this little money, but we cannot bow to evil forces, we must trust the police comrades. It's too late. It's in time, as long as there is water to drink, people can last 2 or 3 weeks even if they don't eat. My father was unshakable. Xinjin is strong and healthy, he will definitely wait. Jiang Shuangshuang's face was ashen, she was in a daze, as if she had just recognized the true face of the person beside her. Sons are important, but they are not non-renewable resources. My father has more than one mistress outside. As long as there is enough money, there will be endless sons and grandchildren. The detention center was very cold at night, and my mother curled up awkwardly on the bed. I knew at a glance that her waist must be sick. She didn't wear a back brace again. Others closed their stalls after working the morning and afternoon markets, but she insisted on working the evening market as well. Even a tough guy couldn't stand it. Especially in winter, it's hard to walk when her back hurts. I felt sorry for her and advised her to work less, but my mother insisted, work less. Who will support you in the future? Tuition is so expensive now. As I got closer, I heard my mother mumbling softly, Lei, Mom has found a shop in Beijing. When you go to school, we will move there. You study and Mom makes money. Mom has been practicing Mandarin recently. Listen to it and see if it's true. Looking at the tears on my mother's cheeks. 2. I finally remembered how she found my body. That night she called the police, but the police said that the missing person had to be missing for 48 hours. My mother could only beg my father. He has a wide network of contacts and knows many people in the bureau. He can definitely help. But when we arrived at the villa, we saw the couple carrying large and small bags and stuffing Guzhen into the car like thieves. Gu Deshang kept reminding him. Wait until the storm is over before contacting, don't go home yet, wait until Mom and Dad have dealt with it. Guzhen was extremely panicked after receiving Shou Kuan's call, his voice sobbing. He defended himself. I just wanted to teach him a lesson. Who knew he was involved with Gulay? Dad, I don't want to go to jail. My mother vaguely heard my name and became suspicious, so she followed my father's car all the way to the warehouse. My father's first reaction when he saw my body was to vomit. Vomiting and vomiting. Jiang Shuangshuang shook my father in panic. No, we must not let her affect Xin'er, it's all your fault. If you hadn't always used this girl's grades to stimulate your son, would your son be like this? We harmed our son. The two hurried away and didn't notice the van following behind. The next day, my mother heard the news in the detention center. It was said that Jiang Shuangshuang lost control of her emotions during the quarrel and stabbed my father, causing necrosis of one kidney, and was sent to the hospital. After the money was transferred to the designated account as promised, my mother was very satisfied and said that women still understand women. In that case, I'll give you a gift. The lock of the door that held Guzhen was opened. He cried with joy and climbed out of the cage with his hands and feet, but what was waiting for him outside was a bigger iron cage. Inside, there were not only Huang Mao, the class teacher, but also all the people who committed the crime that night. The incomplete body of Shokuan lay in the corner. I suddenly understood why the police did not find blood in the kitchen. My mother did not kill them, but trapped them here like raising a goo, without giving them food and water, and letting them fight each other. What people will do when they are hungry should not be unfamiliar to everyone, right? You, what do you want to do? Guzhen retreated desperately, trying to stop. Don't get close to me, get out, get away. At the critical moment, the technical department brought good news. They repeatedly analyzed the video, not missing any details, and found clues through the soundtrack in the video. Look, there is a light source on Guzhen's face, which shakes regularly at certain times. This should be the vibration caused by the passing of the train. Check the warehouses near the intersection of the underground waterway and the railway immediately. Using the passing time, we can further calculate the length of the train, contact the Railway Bureau, and find the train lines that meet the conditions for comparison and investigation. Soon, the results came out. It was an abandoned pig farm. My grandfather used to work there, and it was also the place my mother was most familiar with when she was a child. The rescue officially began. Before leaving, Jiang Shuangshuang swept away the decadent and embarrassed look, and unscrupulously ridiculed, "Zhou Ruyun, evil cannot defeat good, just wait to die." It took only 40 minutes to drive from the police station. My mother was handcuffed, and there were real police officers next to her. She had no way to escape. But she was not in a hurry at all. She leaned against the window in the car and stared at the blue sky and white clouds outside. Today, the weather is really nice. The bright sunlight fell on her face through the glass, and she muttered to herself. Lei said she wanted to go to Disney after the college entrance examination. What should I say to her? I said that you are so old, and you still have the mind to play these things. Doesn't college cost money? Doesn't changing mobile phones and computers cost money? Which one is better than going to Disney? I felt sad. It's okay, Mom. I just want to go with you. It doesn't matter where we go, as long as we are together. My daughter never went there until she died. You know, the older my daughter gets, the more uncertain I feel. I have no education and I can't even help her with the questions for the 2nd and 3rd grade. I'm afraid that my daughter will look down on me, so I just yell at her and scold her. It seems that if I talk about the sufferings I've suffered more times, my daughter will listen to me more. Lei said that I'm a typical East Asian mother who relies on nitpicking to find a sense of existence. I didn't understand it before, but now I know it. Yes, I'm like that. I don't know how to be a good mother. Jiang Shuangshuang smiled gloatingly. Yes, your daughter is unlucky. She has a mother like you who knows how to make buns all day long. You are short-sighted and have fallen to this day. My son will be safe, and you will spend the rest of your life in prison with your daughter's ashes. I was so angry that I was shaking all over, but my mother was not angry at all. The corners of her mouth were still curled up with a faint smile. Yes, you are so lucky. I really envy you. At this time, the policeman who was sitting in the co-pilot seat and staring at the surveillance camera suddenly realized something. He asked everyone to shut up and turned up the volume. In the headphones, the sound of wind and rain could be heard faintly, and the raindrops were dripping, clearly. At this moment, the sun was shining outside the window, and there were no clouds in the sky. What does this mean? It means that the video is a recording. The last heavy rain in G-City was 3 days ago. The sound of rain was still dripping in everyone's heart, and the car fell into extreme silence. It turned out that the real despair was that people thought that hope was in front of them, within reach, and within reach. Completely vanished. Jiang Shuangshuang finally understood what my mother meant by "the weather is so good." A terrifying, inhuman voice squeezed out of her broken throat, but it was useless. This is a video from 3 days ago. My mother squinted happily in the sunshine. Jiang Shuangshuang, Your son likes to use money to get his lackeys to do things. Now, these dogs have been hungry for a long time. Guess, will dogs eat their owners? The answer will be revealed soon. The end.